If you've got areas of redness like me and you want something to cover the redness, but you also want it to be lightweight because we've got this lovely warm weather, today's video will be for you. I'm going to create a really simple everyday look to take my complexion from looking like this to something really simple but just bronzed and healthy like this. The inspiration for this video is a message I received from you, Rachael, this week. I'm just going to read it out because I think that a lot of things that you touched on here are things that we can all relate to. So you said to me that in terms of makeup, which stages would I recommend doing and in what order? You're finding that your makeup is patchy in certain areas. You start with skincare, follow with primer, then you're using your Clinique Redness foundation on top. You've got your concealer under your eyes, you put some bronzer on, and even with all of these steps, your redness is showing through. First of all, it sounds like you've got an amazing routine. You've got your skincare in there, your favourite makeup things, your primer. The first thing I wondered is, in particular in this kind of weather, is there any steps that we can remove? So I thought I would show you kind of how I've changed my routine so that I still have all of my sun care and things like that, but I'm stripping it back as much as I can. So I'm actually by the sea this week. I'm staying at my friend's house and I've been using this Avene SPF 50. It comes out so rich. The first time I opened it, I was thinking, this is so rich, it's never going to absorb. But actually it gives a really fresh finish. I've been out and about today and I've topped this up and it is nice and kind of hydrating, but it does absorb well. But it is significantly richer than what I would usually use in the morning. So because that's so rich, the first thing I've done is I'm not bothering to moisturise because that is moisturising enough. And I'm not going to use a primer step because I think with primer, it depends what you're kind of trying to achieve. If your primer is doing something specific like reducing oil, reducing texture, adding radiance, then absolutely go for it. But if it's a primer just with the purpose of locking your makeup in for that bit longer, if you're using your skincare routine, like you say, Rachael, you're probably prepping your skin really well with those steps and you don't necessarily need the primer as well. And sometimes, I know it might sound counterintuitive, but to get things to last for as long as possible, less can be more, because the more hydrating layers we have, the harder it's going to be to lock them down. So I've been applying my SPF. That particular one is so rich that I've been leaving a good 15 minutes before I put my makeup on. I know that's not always possible. Everyone's busy and has a different routine. If you want something more lightweight, you could try something like the Roche Posay Anthelios, or I can't think of the name of it. They have a B5 SPF that's like a gel consistency. And then in terms of makeup, what I like to do is go for something lightweight all over and then just add a little bit more coverage on the more prominent areas of redness. So this is what I've been doing. So the first thing I'm going to use is the Coming Soon CC Glow from IT Cosmetics. I've really been in two minds as to whether to use this in my videos because I know that lots of people have told me they're so excited for it to launch and I don't know exactly when it's coming yet. But at the same time, I've been wearing it a lot and I feel like even though I don't have a date as when it's going to arrive just yet, it's nice for you to see it a few different times in different videos in different lights to get an idea of what it's going to be like. So I'm going to start by taking this all over my complexion and let me double check I'm using the shade Light in this. If you're used to wearing the CC creams from IT Cosmetics, this is kind of a new addition to the CC family, but it is very different to any of the existing CC creams. This is more of a light to medium coverage, I would say. And the glow is like a healthy radiance. It's not shimmery. I think one of the key questions that has come through is this just CC illumination in another packaging? And it absolutely isn't. A number of reasons. The CC illumination offers a completely full coverage, and also the illumination property in that is what we call a drops of light technology, which is like a pearliness. So this doesn't have any of that. It's more of like a skin-like, like when you naturally have that kind of dewy skin, you've been out for a brisk walk or something, it's that kind of a glow. Now, I am very warm today and I've got my rich SPF on, so this might even be coming up slightly more dewy than perhaps it would usually come up. But if I just show you there, one of the things that I think is crucial when you're working with redness is to use the softest possible pressure. What I'm doing here is really gently gliding this onto the skin without rubbing it too much, because I kind of want to place it where I need it, let it stay there, and then not do too much touching. I'm going to take a layer of this all over. I love that that's given me like an all over radiance, and I'm going to powder it too. But before I do that, I'm now going to go in with the RCMA Colour Process Foundation. This is the shade Shinto 1. I've been using this in a few videos and things recently, and I bought 2 different shades of this online, and this is the second shade that I bought because I just wanted to show you and explain that when I went to buy this, it's really quite confusing choosing the right shade. So I thought I'd show you the 2. This is the other shade than the one I used the other day, so you've got a comparison point. Now, what I'm doing here is again pressing this in just where I know I need a full coverage, and also troubleshooting anywhere that redness is likely to show through during the day. So for me, that's definitely the sides of the nose. There's also a little patch there that I want to target. And the thing with this kind of weather, like already you can see that's left really quite a dewy sheen on my skin. 2 things. The first thing is that you are going to need to top up through the day to get, if you want to achieve like a lasting flawless finish. But also using creams, I'm going to use all creams today. They're a really nice texture for when you get a bit hot and sweaty. You can just buff them out and buff them in and build over them. When I say buff out and build, I'm talking about maybe the outer parts of the face. But I love that they're very buildable in a way that perhaps if you were layering powders on top of powders, things could start to feel a bit thick after a while. But before I go any further, I'm going to take a little bit of the It Cosmetics Bye Bye Pores powder. And again, I am pressing this on rather than rubbing it in. Now, one thing I always like to mention whenever I use this powder, I really densely load the brush and just pat it on, and so the results look really dramatic. And so people always say, have you done something to that footage? Is it edited in some way? Because it does give you this kind of instant wow factor. And I haven't, but the best thing I can say to you is go into store and try this, because you can go to any counter, they'd be delighted to have you. And if you want to see how it works and see the kind of instant velvety finish it will give you, that's the best way. So rather than just wonder and not be sure, honestly, any of the teams, any of the It Cosmetics counters would love to have you, and that way you can see for yourself that it does give this very kind of instantly blurring finish. I've just done the centre of the face because I want to still keep the freshness everywhere else. And again, Rachel, that kind of pressing on rather than rubbing in means that you're layering every step on top of each other rather than kind of disrupting the things that you've just spent the time to build. And the next thing I'm going to use, just to warm everything up a little bit, I haven't been using my tanning drops for the past few days. I'm buffing off the excess of the CC cream that was on my brush, and I'm going to use the Danessa Myricks cream contour. One thing I would say about this, I saw someone recently say that they wish that more people share the things that they go to the most often. This is one of the best things I've ever bought. I think I must have bought it, I want to say like a year ago. I'd be able to go through my emails and see. Oh gosh, I've picked that up the complete wrong way. Hang on a minute, let me just salvage this before I actually sabotage this poor woman's name, as opposed to trying to talk about how much I love it. That was my fault. That was the way I picked that up. What I love about this is I basically bought a few things from Danessa Myricks because She's a makeup artist that has her own products, and so on her social media pages she shares a mixture of her editorial work and then the makeup. And if you have a look at her editorial work, it's always the most like beautiful glowing skin, and everyone's skin just looks so healthy. So it made me want to try some of her complexion products. It's one of the loveliest cream bronzers that I've tried. No shade at all, but like I always see people talking about the Chanel bronzer, and I think it's nice, but it's just not kind of absolute top of my list of something that I think is amazing. Whereas this one, I'm always like, why are more people not talking about this one? Like, this is honestly where it's at. If you would prefer a high street alternative, say I've done it again, but it'll be fine. This is so buttery that will be fine. If you'd prefer more of like a high street alternative, the Peaches and Cream bronzer is absolutely lovely as well. And while you're at Peaches, you honestly can't go wrong with anything. But actually there are a few kind of cream bronze products that I reach for a lot. The Nude Sticks Bondi Bay is beautiful. I just got that glossier one that I was talking about the other day, so maybe I'll do a bit of a bronzing segment for the summer. Now, see how that has really lifted everything. Again, I'm patting this on because I'm with you, Rachel. I want to wear all of these steps. I want bronzer, I want coverage, I want, you know, everything. But you want to do it in a way that every next step isn't lifting up the last step. I've used the same brush for all of those steps. That is the Bobbi Brown, I don't even know the name, the full coverage face. I've got several of these in my kit. A really lovely kind of grey multi-purpose all over the complexion brush. Another thing I would say with that is that the bristles are quite dense. So for this patting motion, it really will keep quite a pigmented finish rather than the product getting lost in it necessarily. And then to just, because that now feels like quite fair with the bronze, I'm going to marry it all together with some of the Daniel Sandler Watercolour blush. Now this is really lovely because as well, I feel like with rosacea and blusher, people can often just want to avoid it altogether. But actually, adding a tiny flush of pink or whatever blusher colour you're going for back in can make the skin look really natural and healthy. You can almost look like you haven't even got as much makeup on, because if you did have makeup on, why would the redness be showing through? But also, I just think that if you have done all of your other work, like putting your full coverage where you want it, put your creams where you want them, it gives you the control back and you can enjoy where these colours sit on your face as opposed to feeling out of control that the redness has taken over. So I'm going to just put a small amount on the back of my hand and gently add it to the cheeks with the same brush again. What was I going to say about this? Again, really soft liquid consistency, and I'm patting it on. Very easy to build. And all of these steps now, there's no kind of harsh lines as to where one starts and another one ends. As the day goes on and you're a bit warm, you can just kind of buff them out if there's a problem, build a tiny bit more. Definitely the powder down the T-zone, like pressing. In particular, you want to think about the folds of the face. So down here, upper lip, these kinds of folds here, this is where glowy dips into kind of sweaty territory. So if that's nice and tidy, the rest can be as glowy as it wants to be, and you're never going to look like you've overdone it. Another key thing that I already had on this morning is in the warm weather, or if your skin even is warm to the touch, I would recommend using a tubing mascara. It uses a slightly different technology, so rather than that kind of smudging and panda eyes, it crumbles off when you go to remove it. I'm using the Clinique High Impact today. Is it High Impact? No, it's not. Lash Power. Lash Power is the one that's tubing, or as well from Clinique, the High Impact Zero Gravity is a tubing mascara, but I would say the Lash Power is my favourite kind of absolute trustworthy one. And then I'm trying to think what else you said to me. So in theory, Rachel, if we've skipped the primer because you've done all of those, skincare steps. You've got your base on. I would also say, and I know it's frustrating, but I feel like it's the best way to get like the most flawless finish. Say if you were making a cake and you take the sponge straight out of the oven and put the icing onto it, the icing is going to be a lot more melted on that part of the sponge versus if you left the other half for like half an hour and then put the icing on. And sometimes when your skin is red and hot to the touch, that's the same analogy. You're putting your makeup onto that hot skin, it's a bit more prone to melting away than it would be if your skin wasn't as hot. The best answer I can give you is to find something small for your bag that you can do a little discreet top up through the day. For me, that looks like, for example, the makeup I've done today, it would be these two that I'd take out so I can top up my powder as the day goes on and go into this little part of kind of cream foundation and just tidy up the areas where it is more prone to being red. And I think in particular, if you've got really quite prominent redness, like mine isn't, touch wood, as bad today, but sometimes it flares up and it's a lot more prominent. I'd rather just like be completely straight up front with you and say that a few top ups through the day is what's going to keep it flawless, as opposed to giving you suggestions of things that you can leave the house and forget about, because that's not quite as realistic. Or it would have to be something quite heavy that might not be as comfortable. And I'd rather you have something fresh and lightweight like this that you can just tweak, rather than feel like you've got to put lots and lots of layers on first thing in the morning, in particular when the weather is this bit warmer. So I hope that was helpful. And as I say, I really did want to show you the nude glow, and I know it's so frustrating that I don't have dates as such yet as to when it's going to be coming, but I think you're going to love it, and I hope you like the kind of initial preview of it. I'll also show you, to be honest, I've been wearing this a lot on its own. It's less coverage than the original CC creams, but depending on where my skin is at, if I'm having a bit of a calmer skin patch, that's more than enough coverage for me. But today I'm slightly more prominent with the redness, and so I knew I needed just a little bit of extra cover. And that in mind, actually, if you're looking at that, I think it's a really good way of reminding you that like it's very different to the original CC, and depending on what you're looking for, you might still prefer the original CC. But I'm yet to have my kind of proper introduction to it. So I'm going to share loads more about it when I have. But if I could give you my kind of initial comparison points, I'd say that if you loved the Clarins Beauty Flash Balm, this is kind of like, if that was a foundation. It really reminds me of that kind of luminous finish that isn't shimmery but just looks healthy. If you like the likes of MAC Face and Body, it almost feels like more of a fuller coverage gel cousin of that. So they would be two kind of reference points I would give you. But anyway, I hope that was helpful. Thank you for watching. As always, please feel free to let me know if there's anything in particular you'd like to see in a video, and I'll chat to you very soon. Take care.